Hello, everyone. I was running errands and I got home and I'm going to wait for some people to come on, but pretty much I'm just trying to experiment with these live streams and trying to figure out what time people like to watch them and trying to figure out if it's best if I let people know when I'm about to stream or if it's more fun whenever it's random. So I don't really have anything in particular I want to talk about. I got new tires today. I went to the dry cleaners. I went to the grocery store. I'm trying out this new schedule where I don't work on Mondays. So, yeah, exactly. And it's called Heartbeat. How ENFJ is that? But yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and just ask them. So, yeah, I don't have anything prepared. So, I've been considering the idea of live streaming every Monday now that I have a new schedule. But I'm trying to figure out if it's more fun to pop on randomly or if it is more fun to let people know when I'm free. And I don't know if you guys like to watch live streams while you're at work in the background. If a lot of you are at work now, if you prefer to a little later in the day, so any of that information is useful as well. But I did not even know, Faye, I didn't even know it was the equinox. So I do weirdly feel a lot more peaceful the past couple days. I have been really stressed about all of the obligations that I have signed up for, and I did this weird sort of exercise with myself where I made a list of all of my obligations and then I journaled about how all of those obligations make me feel. And then I tried to figure out the resistance that I have to them and tried to get really serious about what times a day do I prefer to do things. I had such a great day yesterday for whatever reason. As soon as I woke up, I just hopped out of bed and started doing the dishes. And then I vacuumed. And starting off the day on that foot was absolutely ridiculous for me because I just felt so proud of myself all day that, I don't know, my mind was screwed on right for whatever reason. So Devin asks, are you working in journalism or have you pivoted to something else? So yeah, let me sort of tell you what I'm up to these days for those of you who don't know. So my degree is in journalism. And the reason why I got my degree in journalism was because I've always been passionate about communicating and about, helping people share their story, about the truth, like that sort of stuff. But I never really saw myself working in a traditional newspaper, and I didn't honestly really know how I saw my career going. Like, I guess I just thought, oh, I'll use these skills in whatever job I do, sort of thing. But I like the idea of magazine and like online magazines more than anything. But my degree was in emerging media, so I was very much interested in how to build online audiences, social media, like online market research and a bunch of that sort of stuff, like in my degree. And then my first job, I worked at an online magazine where I talked about startups, and that's when I got introduced to entrepreneurship because I started interviewing all these entrepreneurs and I got really involved in that community. And I did some marketing for tech startups. I've done ghostwriting for tech startups. I've done a bunch of random hodgepodge digital media stuff that actually what I've been working on behind the scenes about the past 6 months is my friend and I are starting a company, a digital marketing agency / media company. And you know, that's what I've been trying to I've been trying to, I guess, pivot my attention from being this sort of a la carte shop doing freelance for people, and I've realized that the power dynamic of going up to people, "Hey, how can I help you? I can do whatever you want," doesn't really work as well for me as it is to have it's gonna be organized, like, as a business, but also to the point where if someone wants my help, I can, give them a formal, like, audit or needs analysis and then be like, "Here are these packages that we offer." And so that has been taking up a lot of my mind the last few months, trying to figure that out. And on top of, I'm going to school part-time in organizational psychology. So I eventually want to do like consulting with that as well, and like make sure I have a background in psychology, because really I am interested in studying Carl Jung. So, and sharing online content. And it's like I have this vision that I'm trying to converge all these things together, and my self-care is just coming completely last. But really the issue is just that, and I might have even said this in some of my recent videos, the issue is just that I've been sprinting for so long that now I'm feeling my body sort of slow down, and I don't really know what my pace is that I like to move, because I'm so used to feeling like I have no choice but to sprint. And or like if I don't sprint, I won't get there, sort of thing. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, they can throw that in. I'm just sort of rambling still. I guess that's really what a live stream is rambling. Which, another thing I wanted to ask you guys is, I've been wondering, like, if I should live stream once a month on my channel, and then I might introduce something where like I do like 3 extra times a month on Patreon or something, like for like $1 a month. I don't know. It's like, the thing is that I want to make these things. I've been trying to figure out what, if anything, I want to offer on Patreon, and part of me is like afraid to do that. But if I want to like make it so that all of my live streams are on Patreon, I would want like some here, some there. I don't know. But yeah, so Hambone asks, what do you think about the gays? Should they be allowed to get married? I don't know if that's a joke or if you didn't know, but I'm actually bisexual, so yeah, they should definitely be allowed to get married, because, I am part of that community. A Star is Born says, best romantic partner for ENFJs. That's a tough one. So I think it depends on what the ENFJ is looking for at the moment. So Hambone says you don't look bisexual. I'm not really going to go into that so much in this video, but I just want to say that any person could look. Bisexuals don't look in any certain way. Anybody could be attracted to anyone. And so the thing is there's no one way that a bisexual looks. So, yeah. Hey, Flow State. Taylor. Hey, Michelle. For those of you guys who are new, I'm sort of just like figuring out, do I prefer to tell people when I'm about to live stream, or do I prefer to jump on? So, yeah. Whoa, the question from earlier. The best romantic partner for an ENFJ. I think, okay, as I was saying, I think it depends on what the ENFJ is looking for. Because in every relationship, you have to strike a good balance between feeling really understood and also feeling challenged. The compatibility and also the chemistry piece. And you can have chemistry with any personality type, but you also sort of have to ask yourself, what am I looking to learn from this relationship? What about myself really what you want is going to be different for everyone. So for example, I'm with an INFJ right now, and I am very understood, and I feel the most understood and the most seen that I've been in any other relationship. But, whenever I've been with an ISTP, that was a little bit more challenging. But also there's an understood piece too. But also I felt like, oh, I'm too emotional. It really just depends on the person as well. But I do find it interesting that I sort of went through a phase of kind of really liking a lot NFPs, and then I liked a lot of NTPs, and then I liked a lot of STPs, and it's really weird. Like, there were like multiple people clustered around that. So it's almost like when I look back on my life, I was looking for something specific that maybe that type could offer. And once I learned that lesson, I kind of like had a new lesson I wanted to learn. But so Devin says, Megan, I don't know if you saw this in the last live stream, but I said I think it's impressive that you are from the Midwest and in your mid-20s and are one of the top teachers in typology in the world. Well, thank you so much for saying that, Devin. I have a lot of imposter syndrome. I don't know if I would even ever declare myself as one of the top teachers in typology, but that's part of the reason why I actually am working on my degree in psychology, is because no matter if people like me a lot on the internet, I want to be able to back up what I find. I want to be able to be understood and welcomed if I have new ideas and philosophies and stuff. And I don't just want, I want to be taken seriously, pretty much. I don't just want to be seen as a pseudoscientist. And, I am a young woman, and I am interested in things that aren't really necessarily scientifically proven all the time. I'm also interested in astrology. I'm interested in metaphysics. So it's hard for me because I do feel like I've had a lot of observations that are more, I guess, groundbreaking. I don't really know how to say that without feeling like I'm sounding cocky, but like, I do think that I've had some ideas that I think are advancing what Carl Jung's original ideas were, and I feel like I really understand what he was going for, and I would like to continue down that path. And I'm doing everything I can to try and create more of a foundation for myself and for my career so that I am being realistic, at least a little bit realistic, because it's kind of impossible. Like, with my goals and stuff, it's not like a super realistic thing for me to try and do. So, okay, I'm kind of trying to back up on these comments. Okay, so OJC Astrology, how's it going, girl? She asks, how can an ENFJ stop worrying about what their audience wants and silence their inner criticism that holds them back from authentically creating? Do we suck at replacing self-love with service? That is an amazing, amazing question. And I just have to say that this sort of even connects with something else I saw. So I'm going to read this really quick. Is that Devin says, Megan, have you considered doing videos that show celebrities of a certain type from an educational standpoint to draw in a larger audience to your channel. It might help you sell yourself in the corporate world. So Devin, that's a really great idea, and I'm not trying to dismiss this idea, but I do want to connect that this is actually an idea that I've thought of that I feel like would make people like me, or I feel like would be a good idea, but it's not something that I authentically feel like creating. And so to answer your question, Olivia, OJC Astrology, is that I do feel that push and pull. And I think when I first started YouTube, I felt way more connected to the audience and to the comments, and I would react really negatively if there was a comment that I didn't like, or I felt like every time somebody commented something and wanted a video that I had to do it and stuff. But what's helped me, I guess, is to really step away and step into the vision that I have for my channel and for the messages that I want to get across, and really make sure that I'm sharing whatever I want to share at the end of the day, and realizing that the goal, okay, it's really just sort of like aligning yourself with your goals. And it's not like I necessarily have the answer on how to be amazing at self-care, because I'm not really that great at it, at least not right now, but I'm working on it. But remembering that the goal isn't more subscribers, the goal isn't more comments, the goal is to share what's on your heart and to make the impact that you want to make. And for example, I feel like I could have more subscribers if I did more videos about celebrities, or if I did more like shorter videos, but I don't really feel inspired to make those. So no shade to anyone that makes those, because those are great videos. But what really warms my heart is, for example, I got a comment, shout out to Jay if you happen to be watching this, but I got a comment from an ENTJ on my Facebook group that recently said something like, I hear your little FE voice in my head every time I'm about to make a decision that's going to impact the group. Now that sort of comment makes my day, because that is exactly what I want. I don't really care if I have lots of subscribers. I don't really care if everyone likes me. What I do care about is whenever something I said that came from my heart that I felt inspired to share, whenever someone understood it, and then that idea was able to grow, and I was able to start a conversation about something. Like what's fun for me is like starting conversations with people about, FE and FI conflict, and like what could we do to show our loved ones that we care about them. That's really fun for me to see that I did something or said something, and then a conversation was started because I planted an idea in someone's head. I care about that more than I care about educating. So it's not that I don't like to educate, but every time I make a video that is more from all right, let me tell you how cognitive functions work, it's like I'm forcing myself to do those now, because I realize that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that people do want to know like how my take on things, and I want it to be easy to access that information. But it's not really what inspires me. I really like talking to people, and I really want to have more interviews on my channel. Like I want to show more type interactions, and show more of like the functions in action, and like sort of talk to people and be like, oh, do you see how they just use this function and I just use this function? But before I really can do all that, people have to be on the same page of what these cognitive functions even are. So I'm sort of trying to catch up still. Yeah, Devin says doing typology in the corporate world is a good but safe route. So it's good to hear you'll have that as an option. Yeah, so the thing with organizational psychology is that I would be allowed to practice psychology, not clinical, but it would open up the door to conducting lots of different assessments at an organizational level. I'm not really sure how that works yet. Like if I would, I mean, I'm sure I'd have to get MBTI certified before I can administer it, but I don't really know how it works. Like once I'm licensed as an organizational psychologist, like what assessments and psychometrics they have access to, but I would be able to do that more freely. So that is sort of, I guess, my new backup. Not that I don't want to do that, but the thing is I know for sure I don't want to just do entry-level marketing forever. Like it's just not fun for me. So it's my way of getting my foot in the door to where from now on I can assume that my focus is going to be on people and on figuring out how people work. Yeah, because Devin said I had a business fail, and it's good to see other people consider what they'll do if their bigger risks don't go as planned. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think the thing with my digital marketing business that is going to be really good for me, I believe, is that my ENFJ business partner and I, we both have our own business as well. She does astrology and tarot readings and Reiki. And, I have life coaching. I did my typing services. And so we aren't really putting all of our eggs in one basket. It's like we both are skilled in doing brands for people, like in online media, and like we know a lot about that stuff. And so it's just going to allow us to have more structure surrounding those things. And so I don't feel like it's like I have to make a certain amount of money from it right off the bat. Like it could be something that's just set up as a funnel, and then if anyone needs it, they can come to me, that sort of thing. So it doesn't feel like a huge risk, yet at the same time, when I think about it, it is really exciting. But yeah, Faye says, those are my favorite types of videos because it becomes a tool beyond a theory when it's used relationally. Yeah, I think it could be really hard to see the cognitive functions in action, and it could be hard to really see the value of why this stuff is even important when a lot of videos are about it aren't really using the functions as a means to understand people better. And I'm not, again, like no shade to any other videos, but because sometimes like we all learn differently, and sometimes being sort of tongue-in-cheek about it and sometimes joking around about the functions is a great way to learn. But I think that what I'm really interested in is sort of bringing it down to the reason why we even care about the system, and showing how you can use the functions to improve people's lives and your relationships. So Dan asks, what system would you recommend to somebody who's getting into typology for the first time? MBTI or socionics? That's hard for me because I feel like in general, knowing your MBTI type tends to be a way to ease people into it because it is less information. But at the same time, if you don't understand how all 8 functions work inside you in your psyche, then it can lend to lots of stereotypes about other types. And it can I think that if you learn about just the dichotomies, and I'm not even saying, I understand that MBTI also has cognitive functions involved. But I think you should learn about the basic dichotomies about extroversion and introversion, feeling and thinking, sensing and intuiting, and all of that stuff. You should learn about that first because it's difficult to even really understand the cognitive functions until you understand that. But even if someone is not interested in socionics or not interested in any like 8 function models at all, I do think that they should be told that that is, an option that they can explore, because I think telling someone, "Oh, the MBTI is all there is," and suggesting that without like at least letting them know about like the shadow functions can definitely lead to more confusion than you'd think. So, sorry, I hope that answered the question. Yeah, Chris says, I don't understand why people want short videos. When I like it, I want it longer. When I don't like it, I don't want to watch it. Yeah, that's interesting to me because I really feel inclined to make long videos. I think because I'm a pretty long-winded person. And I think it's hard to really get to the root of something in a few seconds, I think. So, Devin asks about my background. Are you from the country? Is your family upper class, lower class, middle class? How has that affected your career and thinking? So, I'm from technically a suburb, but very close to a city. I'm from Independence, Missouri, hometown of Harry Truman, start of the 3 trails. Technically, it's a suburb of Kansas City, but it's also, it was built before Kansas City, so it's pretty urban in the sense that it's not really structurally laid out like a general suburb. I grew up middle class, but the school I went to school with people who were lower class, and so my experience as a high schooler was more privileged compared to most people at my school. And then when I went to a state school in Missouri, my experience is that I felt a lot more lower class compared to my college peers because my family had to take out loans, and I was around lots of people from, rich suburbs that went to, Catholic schools whose parents paid for college. I had a roommate that was like, my parents don't believe in taking out loans. And I was like, oh, well, it's not really a matter of do I believe or do I not believe. It's that, it's the only thing that I could do to get an education. So, but I grew up, my grandpa immigrated to America from Sicily, and then on my mom's side, and then on my dad's side, my great grandpa came here from Sicily, which is, an island in Italy. So there's definitely some sort of, like loud Italian family, immigrant-ish sort of culture. I had family in politics. So my family was very large and very well known to where I feel like I always had everything I needed, but I definitely was not rich or even upper middle class. Oh, yay, OJC's astrology says she's Italian too. That's awesome. But yeah, I definitely was middle class to lower middle class, yet I feel like my family was very well regarded to where I had sort of social power, if that makes sense. Like families that were on city council, lawyers. Like I always knew every substitute teacher, all that sort of stuff. So I'm very thankful for how I grew up because I feel like, growing up, I had friends that, like my friends in kindergarten, like lived in trailer parks and stuff. And I knew, you know, I had a friend who, like, I'm so lucky that I had the parents I did that always told me, I love you, I believe in you, you can do whatever you can do whatever you set your mind to. My parents were college educated. A lot of my friends' parents were not college educated. And I had friends growing up that they had real shit going on in their lives, like with their family and their family situations. And like looking back, I thought that these people were mean to me for bullying me. And now I know that they had other shit going on that I did not have going on. So I feel thankful. Sorry, I'm still on this topic, but I feel thankful that I didn't grow up in a bubble, and yet also I had my childhood where, you know, I'm very lucky for the childhood I had. And then, it's like, yeah, you get the idea. Okay. Edwin says, I appreciate your critical thinking, Megan. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. OJC Astrology says, ENFJ has a lot to learn about how to make themselves happy. I think creating from an inspired and authentic space is a huge part of that. Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I think that in general, the hard part for me is that I always make time for my intuition, and I always make time to, like, for my inner wisdom, or to make sure that I have a knowing or an understanding before I move forward. But I don't really take care of my body to the same regard. I will schedule a meeting at 2 and another meeting at 3. I won't give myself like any break in between, sort of thing. I do not give myself a break. And that is really difficult. And I think I want you all to know, if you guys are interested in self-growth and you're interested in your personality, that just because you know your areas of weaknesses, that's like the first step in understanding your personality. Like, you at least know which direction your weaknesses are, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you know the answers or you know how to solve them. And it doesn't mean that people that don't have that weakness will know how to help you either. Because, for example, I don't really I don't know how to really give myself a break. I don't really know how to relax. Like, that's partially to do with my polar SI that I mentioned earlier. I think someone mentioned that earlier. But just because I know that I'm polar SI doesn't mean that I really know how to solve that. And if I were to go ask an SI person how they do it, it's not like how they do it is going to work for me. So it's sort of like this process of self-discovery and understanding what you need to do for you. So let me check out some topics. Thank you, Jean Grey. Okay, so sorry. Flow State says, LOL, I never check in with my intuition before moving forward. WTF does that even mean? That's a great question. And Andy, I saw your question too. I'm going to get to that one in just a second. That's a good one. Okay, so Flow State Taylor is an ESTP. So as an ENFJ, we use the same cognitive functions. And I think that's such a funny question, because that is exactly the difference between NI coming before SE and SE coming before NI. So Taylor, if you don't mind, like, what do you do before you take action? Like, what does that feel like? Like, I understand that like SE DOMs take action a lot, but like, don't you at least feel some sort of instinct pulling you there? Like, don't you at least feel like something in you telling you you should take that action? Because that's how it feels for me, but I also don't really know, like, to what extent an SP doesn't have that. But I guess really for me, it's like I don't since my NI and SE are in the middle of my stack, I don't want to get into the analysis paralysis that I feel like INTJs and INFJs do, where they dream for years about the perfect idea and they never take action. For me, it feels more like intentionally planting a seed, and then once that's started, it's like a snowball effect that I am now sort of engaging back and forth with the external world and me, but it's like intentional. Like, it's like you can't birth an 18-year-old. You have to birth a baby and then watch that baby grow. Okay. It's like it's the same with anything that you create. Everything you create is going to start out like a seed or like a baby. So that's, I guess, advice for NJs is that in your head you might be dreaming up a castle, but you have to, lay the groundwork, um, drill the first nail into the wood or whatever you're building. I don't know. That's just a metaphor. It's like you have to do something. And so for me, I guess my NI coming before SE sort of feels like now's the time to start on this thing. I like feel pulled. Everything I do, I feel like I'm pulled. Like even just this live stream, I was like, it's not, I wanted to make sure I intuitively felt called to be here, or else I wasn't going to be here. I don't know. Like everything, I kind of overthink everything like that. Okay, Andy asks, why is there so much trolling in the typology community? Oh boy, well, that is a real question, let me tell you. I will say that I did make a video recently about the tea about why there is so much drama in the type community that if you haven't watched, I definitely recommend watching. But the gist of it that I said in that video that I'll say now is that I think personally that the types of people that typology attracts, which someone else said Jonathan said it's typology is fucking up everyone's lives. Interesting take. I think that the type of people that typology attracts is completely different types of people. There are people that are super obsessed with self-growth and on the self-growth journey and stumbled across it because they need to know everything there is to know about themselves, who are just more into the self-development scene. And there's also people who are not so much into the self-development. And there's nothing wrong with you if you aren't into self-development, but that is just like one sort of grouping that I definitely see in the community, is that there are people who know who they are a lot, almost to an extreme degree, to the degree where it's like, you think too much, we get it, you know who you are, you need to go out and have fun sort of people. And then there's also people that really don't know themselves at all and are using this as like sort of a way to get around self-growth and a way to get around getting to know themselves. And I think that there's sort of like this total mix of values in the community and like different reasons why people are using typology. And the underlying assumptions of why we care are so different that it just definitely it's bound to lead to conflict, because some of us have a certain intention in learning about themselves and some of us don't. And I just have to say, as I've said before, if your intention is to control people and to manipulate people and to try and hack their brain without their permission, then I don't align with that. You know, if you feel like you have to hack someone's brain, and if you feel like you have to manipulate them in order to get along with them, you aren't communicating well enough. And what I want to help people do is to use typology to better communicate. And how do you better communicate? You know more about yourself, so you know more about where you're coming from, so you can have the words and the understanding and the knowing to do that. And also, you know more about where the other person's coming from, so you know what types of language to maybe avoid, or you know more about their values, you know how to speak their language, and then you can build bridges with people. And then if you can just communicate with people, you won't feel any need to control them. And I think a lot of people come to typology because they have had shit luck in their romantic relationships or their friendships, or they have issues with their family they want to sort out, or it's more of a personal thing of they just want to know who they are. But the thing is that we're all human, and we've all been hurt badly by someone. And I know I made a video on this like a year ago called Who Hurt You? I was talking about, like, we all have had a situation happen where we felt completely blindsided, completely misunderstood by either a significant other, a family member, a friend. And I think a lot of us were here because we want to figure out why the hell that happened, and we want to avoid that. I mean, that's part of it. And what some people do is they realize, oh, my ex was an ENFP, and so ENFPs suck, or like, oh, my ex was a sensor, and sensors don't get me, and I'm an intuitive, and they suck. And it's like, I think that's definitely part of it. Yeah, Jean Grey says, right, we all went through shit. This is true, and knowing this helps a lot. Yeah. And I think understanding the personality type of the person who hurt you or the multiple people who hurt you, like maybe you'll realize, like, oh, I realized that I've really been hurt by FI users in my life. Why is that? Then if you learn about what FI is, then you can understand more of like why that is. Like, was I being just as disrespectful to them in ways that I didn't even realize, because we are speaking completely different languages? And chances are you were, chances are there are two sides to the story. And even though you did the best you can, perhaps they also were doing. Okay. I'm kind of trying to catch up here. So Hambone says, Megan, have you heard of gelking? No, I have not heard of it. So also Hambone says, tips for accessing creativity in someone with NE polar. I would say that get in the zone, whatever that means for you. Creative SE really likes to do like hands-on things and sort of lose themselves in the moment in like a meditative sort of way. I mean, that could be, I'm using like sort of stereotypical examples, but this could be anything. Like this could be cooking, this could be sports, this could be sewing, this could be crocheting, this could be even reading. Any sort of hobby you have where you feel like you're able to completely get in. And it's ironic that flow state is an SP. I was about to say, when you get in that flow state, I feel like SE really likes that. So trust your instincts where you feel drawn to go. So I want to address more. Jonathan says that typology is fucking up everyone's lives. I think that when you think typology could help everyone's lives, it depends. We need to, I think, sort of rethink our expectations for what typology can even bring you. Because I think some people are just mistaken. I don't know. And, I've seen, you guys tell me, you guys comment your thoughts on that. But to be honest, like, I've heard people be all like, I'm leaving the MBTI community. This is toxic. Or I'm done with the MBTI community. I don't understand that. So tell me if you have any thoughts on that. But for me personally, I know that I'm an ENFJ. I understand functions. It's something I think about. I might be done making videos one day, but even if I stop making videos, like, I still know my type. Like, you're as much in the community as you want to be. I don't know. It's like no one's making you like be on that Discord or be on that Facebook group or be, in that chat. Like, no one's forcing you to be there. I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand, like, why people do that. Because whether you, I don't know, I don't know. It's just a theory that you can think about if you're interested in it. That's how I think about it. Anyway, I don't know. I feel like that wasn't a very good point, but you can see my confusion. Yeah. Chris says the goal to hack someone is such a poor goal. Yeah, and it comes from a low confidence sort of person, like someone that's unable to communicate with the person. It's like not really allowing the other person to have their own agency. And Devin says, is Lawrence, Kansas dope? It's okay. It's about like an hour and a half from me. And I didn't go to KU. I went to Mizzou. So technically I have some sort of a rivalry with them, but I also didn't really care about sports. So it's fine. I think in general, I mean, Kansas City is pretty much a hidden gem. Like, it's total flyover state, but it has everything that you need, in my opinion. Yeah, Jean Gray says, I never put people in boxes. The next person with the same type could always be a good experience. Yes, it's a very good, important lesson to learn. Because even if somebody has the same personality type, doesn't mean that they have the same values, doesn't mean they have the same interests, and they won't have the same maturity level either. Or maybe they will have different opinions about life or different general assumptions about things. And, the number one thing really is, are they willing to grow or are they not willing to grow? Because you can be as shitty as can be or whatever. You can have a lot of problems or whatever you want to say about it. But if you are a person that wants to be better and is willing to try again tomorrow, like, that's great. That's amazing. And, I've noticed in like past relationships, I've been a little bit too lenient on people who definitely did not have the will to grow. And that's fine. Like, you can't really make anyone grow. But if that's something, if growth is important to you, then you can decide whether or not, you want to be with someone who is not willing. Being willing is just a huge thing for me in general. Yeah, Andy says, I think mistypings and assumptions are fucking people's lives up more than typology. I agree. And I think really the issue that we see in the typology community happens in every community. And the reality is, people want to know the answers more than they want to do the research, and they want to learn. And so they are just skimming for anyone who says that they have the answer. And then so the loudest, most confident person who says, I have the answer, whether or not they've done their research, is the one they're going to listen to. And if we all banded together and just did our own research, did our own critical thinking, whatever, then that wouldn't happen as much. But that's the same thing that's happening politically. It's happening in like religious organizations. I mean, I sort of just see the problems of the MBTI community as the same problems that every group that has ever gotten together has had, except for we're sort of growing. And, you know, online communities are weird because people have all different sorts of cultures and all different sorts of beliefs all coming together. And, you know, it's just that all of the assumptions that people have that I would say are incorrect about typology, they are perpetuated by people who misunderstand the theory or who are too quick to jump in and say that they understand it. Which, by the way, I was researching stuff for 5 years before I even had any confidence to make any comment. So I know I'm the weird one here, but just in case anyone got it twisted, like, I wait far too long to share my opinions. Like, I really do. You guys might see me as someone who shares my opinions, but you also don't see what's behind the scenes of how long I sat on that opinion before I shared it. And, you know, I'm very critical of people that jump the gun before they have really understood something. And, you know, people have to be willing to look to multiple sources and to question people and also hold space for different opinions, like, so that we all could come to some answers here together. Okay, I'm still checking out some of these comments. Chris says, aren't NE polar people creative? Yes, definitely. And I just want to say it's like NE creativity, it might get a lot of hype, but it's not the only kind of creativity. Anyone can be creative with any function, but you know, actually this reminds me of something I was thinking about SE recently, is that I feel like while NE is like creative energy about possibilities and ideas, and it's like that sort of overflowing fountain of ideas that we all talk about, SE I feel like is physical creative energy. And the metaphor I was thinking about is that I think SE, it's like the energy of Mother Nature. It is physical creation. It is creative energy, which is similar to sexual energy, which is why I think that there's this stereotype, which may or may not be true, about how SPs are sexually. But you gotta think back to the root of what is even behind that. Or it's like the force of creation that, you know, we see in nature. But we also see behind every single action we take toward something. It's like going from nothing to something due to sheer force of transformation. Like, that is SE. And, you know, a lot of artists are SE users, or literally making music or literally making art. It's not just NE that, you know, comes up with stuff. It's actually pretty hard for NPs to really make something out of their ideas. But at the same time, SPs without NE, it might be hard for them to come up with a good idea to then create. So that's why we need each other, so that we can collaborate and mitigate each other's weaknesses. So Ahmed says, I think MBTI maybe will be bad if people try too hard to fit into their type. I think that the issue is that people think that their type means that there's a specific behavior or specific values, specific opinions that their type has to have. They view it as too static when the type itself comes with potential of how you can manifest that said type based on your maturity level, based on, who you are. There's, so much more that goes into it because your type is just describing your cognitive mindset, your default mode of cognition. And you can use that tool of your cognition to go anywhere you want to go, to think whatever you want to think, to feel whatever you want to feel. You're just going to be limited by the way that your brain naturally likes to think. And that could be something that you try and work with or try and overcome or try and grow with. It's like you might read, for example, that, ESTPs are really mean and really harsh toward people and like have no heart. But that's not what an ESTP is. That's what somebody's opinion, someone's stereotype said. That is perhaps a symptom of some ESTPs, but it's not what an ESTP is. And I think what I also am trying to do is help people get down to what is it? What does it mean to be an ESTP? What does it mean for me to be an ENFJ? Does it mean I have to be nice to every single person I meet? And the moment I stop being nice, I'm not an ENFJ? Is that how it works? I think that we don't really get how it works. And that's why, people feel limited or trapped in a box at their type, but you shouldn't feel trapped. Like, there's nothing about it that should make you feel trapped. So, I'm just catching up on some comments. Sarah, ISFP, says there's different kinds of creativity. It's not always just art. That's very true. It could even just be a creative way to manage a situation or a creative decision you make in your life. Like if you feel really stuck and you say, oh, I have to get creative to figure out a solution here. Yeah. Yeah, Ahmed says all types are creative, but in different ways. I think that's true. And then Supernova says equally creative. No, a lot of people think they're creative, but they're not. I think that not everyone is as naturally. Well, every type has the same potential to be creative, and they are creative in different ways. But I also sort of think that I view creativity as a skill that you can hone in on with practice as well. I don't see that as super static either. But also, so I'm working on my master's in organizational psychology, and from what I've read about creativity, there's sort of different definitions of it, and there's different facets of it, and people have their own research on it. So I kind of am curious about looking into that more because I know that To be more innovative, I think, is a more NI thing, and maybe creative is more extroverted perceiving. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. I need to like have the definitions in front of me, but I definitely think that some types of creativity is more about generating ideas, and some are more about finding an idea, which I think you can sort of see like extroverted perceiving or introverted perceiving with that. You know, and Chris just said, I don't like NI-ish art, which just reminds me of like the fact that the thing with art and the fact that everybody can be creative even with art is that we all have different preferences. So if you aren't an NI user, you probably aren't going to feel super inspired by the perception of or experience an NI user is trying to convey. So Constanza says, are you going to work as a psychologist with patients? So I'm not doing clinical. Actually, let me look up what organizational psychology, how it's like defined as, just to give you guys a better idea. Bye, Sarah. It was good to see you. So industrial and organizational psychology is the degree I'm getting. It is the science of human behavior relating to work and organization principles, organization. Okay, what I always do, I don't know if anyone else does this, is like you see a big block of text and it's like, that's too long. I'm going to try and skim it. But then like, as I'm reading aloud, I'm like trying to edit while talking at the same time. But yeah, it's about, organizational psychologists can try and improve job performance, motivation, job satisfaction, occupational safety and health, the well-being of its employees. So they can, what I'm interested in is like designing systems to help people communicate better and to achieve synergy. I'm not super interested in like HR or like definitely not really corporations, but I would be interested in using some of that to like help people start their own businesses or things like that. So I just sort of see it as getting another skill so that I have like more background. Okay, Hambone says, Megan, the telephone and the internet have already been invented. We solved communication. Okay, then how come people never understand each other? I'm not talking about like tactical communicate. I'm not like going to invent the next telephone. I'm talking about how people communicate. So, and case in point is the fact that you don't understand me right now, so therefore we have a lot of work to do. So, yeah. So Devin asks, who are some successful people and celebrities that you admire most? I really like Marie Forleo, Brené Brown, Gary Vaynerchuk. Hambone just says, because you're never wrong. Sorry, I'm going to get back to you in just a second, Devin, and I apologize. The fact that you just assumed something about my communication proves that you don't really understand how to communicate effectively. And it has nothing to do with me not being wrong. It has to do with the fact that if you are making too many assumptions behind what a person is saying, that is the actual problem that I'm trying to solve here, is that most people go about their day in autopilot, where they either are assuming that other people work like them, or they are, the number one fatal assumption is when you look at someone's behavior, you assume that what drives that behavior is similar to what, if you were to do that behavior, that it would have driven you to do the same thing. So like Hambone over here looking at me and my word choice, you'd think, well, I only would say something like that if I was thinking this. And then that's how people get really confident over the internet, is they say, you think this. Or people do that in real life too. They think, oh, you're probably thinking this. When the correct thing you should do is ask a curious question about what that person's thinking. And if you aren't building a bridge, then you aren't learning from their perspective. And if you aren't learning from their perspective, then you are negating their truth from the equation, which is allowing you to, it's an obstacle to finding truth. And not that you need to care about truth necessarily all the time, but I mean, isn't anyone sick of like watching like political arguments, for example, of just watching people talk over each other and not even listen to what anyone's saying? Even people in the same political party or the same activist organizations just aren't listening to each other these days. And so I'm talking about psychological systems of communication. So, but yeah, Devin, thinking of more successful people. Mark Manson is another good one. Seth Godin. Carl Jung. I'm looking at my bookshelf. Oh, Tim Ferriss. That's a good list. So Hambone says, and what if people choose to not cooperate? And you assume they're just ill-informed and not wholly stubborn. I don't necessarily think that you can assume that someone is either stubborn or ill-informed until you find out. So I think really the rule of thumb is just to be willing to find out, to be willing to have the conversation. And I think really just don't go in blind. Like that's why there are psychological studies on how to communicate and stuff like that. Like every person is different, but there are some rules of thumb through either experience talking with people or like reading experts' research and things like that. Yeah, okay, Hambone says, what if the other party isn't willing? You can't make somebody be willing, but you can. People are more likely to be willing if the way you're communicating is more welcoming. I'm not claiming to be an expert on this at all. I am just curious about the topic. Oh, hey, Sarah. And yeah, Devin, a lot of those names are like in the self-help industry or in digital marketing industries. So a lot of their careers really align with what I do. So that's why I named them. Yeah, Jean Gray says you can't change others, just yourself. But you can also change the way you communicate, and people will respond to you differently if they sense that you are being more open to them. So Costanza says, what are your thoughts on cancel culture or canceling people just because they said things in the past? Yeah, I actually talked about that a lot, I think in my last live stream, which is interesting that I've got that question again because I think it's such a big topic right now. I also did I think a couple other videos similarly about this topic that I can. One was called like Drama and Leadership. Let me see what it's called. I did one recently. Drama, Leadership, and Angry Mobs, Holding Yourself Accountable. I did that one recently that touches on cancel culture. The gist of it is that every situation is different, and what I'm seeing that's going on right now is that some people, people should, like, if you're a public figure, there's going to be consequences. In some situations, it is just a natural consequence, but in other situations, it's people enjoying pulling someone down from a pedestal and enjoying watching someone else's sorrow. And I don't think that it's fair to feel joy whenever somebody else is suffering, no matter what they did. And so it's just pretty nuanced, I guess I would say. So Natalie says, what advice would you give to an INFP stuck in their comfort zone? I would say define what your comfort zone is, like journal it down, and then also write down what is it that what zone do you want to go to that is just outside of your comfort zone? Like, what is it that you feel in your heart you would like to do if only it was more comfortable? And then also think about and maybe journal about what is it that you are afraid would happen. And also journal about what would you be afraid to happen and cared for all the things that you can control. For example, if you want to go skydiving, and like make sure you bring your parachute or whatever. It's like, don't do, like, remember that you can take like a calculated risk, I guess. You don't have to just completely jump outside of your comfort zone. You can inch out by seeing, where is it you want to go, and also is there anything that you can do to mitigate whatever possibly might go wrong? And if not, are you okay with it? Like, are you okay with trying anyway? And another thing, I know you're not an SP, but just learn from the SPs for a second, is that SP types with higher SE, they tend to learn from their experience, like learn through failure. They know how to learn through failure. And INFPs sometimes, I think, have the problem of they've never failed at anything because they never even gave themselves the opportunity to fail. So you could also try and do something and then fail and then realize it's not that bad, because sometimes you might just be hyping it up in your head as being really bad. Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about the podcast that is the title of this video. I'm going to link that below in a comment and also in the description. It's not really, okay, that's what I was going to just ask you guys about, is that I uploaded all of my favorite videos in MP3 form as just a podcast. And so if there's any topics you'd like me to go into that maybe are less MBTI involved, or maybe are different than my normal topics, I don't really know. I'm thinking about the idea of putting more audio only stuff just on my podcast. Maybe I'll do an episode like that soon to sort of hype up the podcast. because I have it on iTunes. I have it on iTunes. Sorry, I got a stupid comment. Okay. I'm going to get rid of this person. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's on Spotify and it's on iTunes already. Yeah, I have no clue who that person was. I just removed them because they were clearly trolling me. But yeah, what was I saying? I might be doing just some audio only stuff for times whenever I don't really feel like being on camera. But currently it's just Meghan LeVota podcast and it's on iTunes and Spotify. And it's kind of out of order. Some of my older episodes might be earlier up, but it has all of my interviews I've done, and most of my more rambly videos, and also some older videos that just never really saw much love. So, yeah. You know, I'm probably going to sign off here soon, but Ahmed asks just a question: how to find your true calling. I like a lot of things. I'm probably good at them, but I can't be certain. I think that's such a great video, or that's like such a good like topic that I think what I might do is turn that into a podcast and then put it on my podcast. So, yeah, so subscribe to my Spotify and iTunes. I can find the link now and then post it in the chat. But yeah, I'm going to make that this week because that is just another topic that, in general, is one of my topics that I'm the most passionate about, is helping people find their calling, whatever that is. And I think that in capitalism, a lot of people think of their calling as like a specific job, but your calling is so much more than just a job. It is, what your heart feels called to do, why you're here as a human. And it doesn't have to be that that intense, but it is going to be unique to you and only you. So, Walter, thank you for saying that I should def stream more often. I think I'm going to start doing it around this time on Mondays. So, if that's a good time for you guys. I know. Okay, so Chris, you said you were about to go to bed. I know Jean Grey, you said you were in Germany. Maybe I should do a little earlier. Maybe I should do 4 or 5 p.m. my time around here, because if some people are still awake, because I feel like I feel like this community, the MBTI community, is pretty all across the world, It's pretty cool. Yeah, Devin says, would a INTJ relationship be necessarily horrible? I don't think so, but I do just think I've never been attracted to an ENFJ because I just find it boring for whatever reason. So I would imagine that two people of the same type, you might be bored by them. Or you might just not really know how you can help them. Because that's why the whole idea, like with socionics, is that you're attracted to your dual type, is because they're completely opposite of you. So they have something to offer you And it's like they can feel like your other half or like something that you're not. So it's interesting. I'm with an INFJ, and the mirror relations in socionics. I like that pairing a lot because I think that they do have something to offer you in a way that even if they're very similar to you, it's like my INFJ helps me be more introverted and helps me introspect more and helps me relax more. And Hambone says, "What's in this tea? It is heartbeat kombucha." So I love kombucha. Oh, got someone from Australia here. Yeah, Devin, if you were to be with an ENTJ, I feel like that can maybe get you out of your shell a little bit, help you meet the right people to help you in your career or help you with your goals, that sort of thing. I don't know, like, I feel like I definitely help my INFJ girlfriend get out of her shell, sort of thing. I encourage her to share her art that she will do on her own, but I feel like sometimes INJs need a little push with SE. So if you were to be with your ENJ counterpart, it might just be a little bit less forceful and a little bit more encouraging. Know and are friends with an ESFP without even knowing, because ESFPs tend to show a completely different side of themselves to the INTJ. I don't know. Maybe you don't know any ESFPs. I'm not doubting you, but I've just noticed that with that type, the INTJ ESFP duality, they seem to be so different, yet they really think similarly. And I've found that lots of INTJs actually have lots of respect for certain ESFPs that maybe they don't even realize that they're ESFPs. So, are shrooms legal just in Oakland or in California? I'm confused. Yeah, Andy says, how would I even meet an ESFP? That one's tough because I feel like they're kind of everywhere, but they're in their zone. They're like doing their thing. So I guess by that logic, it's hard to find them. But if you were to go to any sort of group event of a topic that you're interested in, you might find one there. Yeah, it's like, so you're saying that ESFPs are everywhere where INTJs aren't. ESFPs, the easy answer is like, oh, they're at the club or whatever. And that's not really true. I mean, you might find an ESFP doing improv comedy. You might find an ESFP doing, their art gallery. I know one that works as a gardener, and I know one that works as a hairdresser, and I know an ESFP that's a potter. They tend to have something that is just their life or like their thing they do. And the difference between INTJ and ESFP is that the ESFP is probably showing off the thing that they do, and they're probably more open with people. And so, maybe the way for an INTJ to meet an ESFP would be to put yourself out there with your craft and wait till an ESFP approaches you and thinks that what you're doing is really cool. That could be it. Oh, hey, Jeffrey, how's it going? Honestly, yeah, meet one at an art gallery opening. My INTJ friend from high school was really, really close with my other ESFP friend, and we all shared the same sort of sense of humor, but my ESFP friend really, really got him out of his shell. Like, my ESFP friend would just say one thing and he would be literally rolling on the floor laughing. And it was like, and we never got to see that side of him as an INTJ. Like, he's normally a lot more composed and like a witty sort of humor, but she had this ability to have him acting absolutely bonkers, literally rolling around on the floor laughing, and it was such a sight to see. You guys are so interesting, it makes me not want to leave this stream. Okay. Andy and any other NJ here, or really anyone, I'm just curious. I just thought of this, is that I wondered if this was an NJ thing. So, okay. Andy says, I see my close friends, but much of my real friends are long distance, so I never see anyone. My closer friends don't live here. And I have realized that I kind of suck at keeping up with people from high school and college, aside from just liking their posts. And, you know, it doesn't really bother me because I'm just sort of like moving on to the next thing. And like I meet new friends along the way, or like even like some of you guys watching this that like I might talk to more than certain like other people, because it's like I'm going along the path of my life and what I'm interested in, and I will always meet people along the way as I need them. But I've noticed that I feel like SI users will sort of come out of the woodworks and pop back into someone's life just by a text message, or like, oh, I was thinking of you. It's almost like they still remember how close they were with the person, where I always feel like if a year goes by or something, I just assume that they've completely forgotten about me. Like if a certain amount of time goes by from seeing someone, I literally assume that they've forgotten about me. So I don't know if any other NJs relate to that. But yeah. Oh my god. Major ENTP moment from Auto Alchemy, trying to change the playback speed to 2x on a live stream. This is a sign that you NE users need to realize that you need to listen to every word an NI user says and feel it sink in your soul, okay? Because you think that you can understand what we're saying, but really, if you go too fast, you've missed the point. Okay? Oh my gosh. But really though, I think that NE users talk really fast. Like wanting me to like go yeah, open your third eye and everything comes to light, as Yeti says. I can't even imagine putting anything on 2x speed, because I find myself pausing things. So okay, actually this is funny. Auto Alchemy, aka Jeffrey, we did a video together yesterday. If you haven't seen it, you should go see it. But anyway, we were talking about the individuation process, and Jeffrey sent me this channel of like Carl Jung reading group or whatever. And I paused the video every 10 seconds to think about what the guy just said because it was so dense. And I like listening to that stuff, but I feel like I have to pay attention. And if I try and just get the gist of what was said, I always feel like I missed it. So, but I feel like NE users are like paralleling to multiple things at once. So Devin says, and Devin's an INTP, for those who don't know, or whoops, Devin's an INTJ. I was just seeing that you said NTP. Sorry. Devin's an INTJ, and he says, part of why I can't get down with those types, a lot of NTPs don't strike me as good people. I just have to say to that I think that an issue between INTJs and either INTPs or ENTPs is that INTJs, you have FE polar, and so the way that you judge people's morality is like with FI, and so just recognizing that you are probably scanning the NTPs for any sort of FI signs that they're good people. It's just not the right approach to knowing whether or not they're good people. There are going to be very real clashes between NTJs and NTPs that is really to no one's fault of their own, aside from just being different. But if you are looking for an FI root or like a sort of FI sign from an NTP that they're a good person, it's just going to come out differently because NTPs, they won't really say like, this is my diehard moral that I'm going to stand by no matter what. And that doesn't mean they don't have morals, but it's more like, and if you're an NTP, correct me and tell me how it feels for you. But it's more like it depends on the situation for an NTP. And you're more principled. Because I think NTPs see the problem with if you stand too strongly behind a moral, then it can get in the way of truth. Yeah, Chris as an ENTP says it does depend upon the situation. Yeah, I think that that's a big thing is that NTPs, they're going to be more focused on the harm created or the outcome. I don't think that FI is the good person function. I think that FI, if you use FI, then your character is probably going to be a little bit more consistent or a little bit more, but it could be a consistently bad character as well. You could just be a really selfish, shitty person every single day, and you could be using FI. But FE is probably going to fluctuate a little bit more based on the situation and based on what outcome they are looking to create. Hmm. Yeah, Andy says any users put a lot of attention and energy into so many of the wrong things that it's crazy to me. Yeah, I get that, and I think that it's because NE does wants to keep their options open. And I know I've said this on my channel before, but I think NJs have this whole putting all your eggs into one basket syndrome that really scares the shit out of NPs because I'm like banking on like this is my perspective and like this is, the right way to go. And, NI users can feel confident about that, but processed it or whatever. but that's just not how NE wants to function. And so it can be very stressful for an NJ to feel like an NE user is like pulling their energy every which way. But they like to swim in the chaos. And they're more adaptable too. Because if I am not mentally prepared, then I perhaps don't know what to do. So, Andy says she's coming out of an NIFI loop and it sucks. An NIFI loop sounds terrible. I'm sorry for gammas. So, Hambone says, Megan, do you always want harmony? I always want harmony in the end, but I recognize that you won't always get harmony in the end if you always choose harmony now, because I don't seek to maintain anything that's fake peace. Like, you have to get rid of fake peace in order to make room for real peace. And it's interesting because in socionics, there's FE plus and there's FE minus. And so I'm an EIE in socionics, and FE is my first function, and I'm FE minus. And ESFJs or ESEs in socionics are FE plus. And the way that ESFJs and ENFJs use their FE are going to be different. And ENFJs are much more likely to um, expose what is inharmonious or to destroy what is inharmonious in order to achieve harmony. So sometimes you'll see an ENFJ and you're like, I don't understand that what you're doing is harmony at all. And that's because, well, where ESFJs are more focused on maintaining the harmony that is, that's because their FE is with SI. So they're focused on the comfort in their sensory reality, where ENFJs are focused on more the long term, where they can see when they look at something that is fake or inharmonious, they think, oh, I can totally see how that's going to fester and smell like absolute shit in a few years if we don't clean this up now. So the behavior for ENFJs is not always going to be all warm and fuzzy because it is more long term. And it's, SI is my polar function. It's my blind spot. So I'm not very focused on comfort. I'm focused on growth. I'm focused on moving forward. And so whenever I'm saying that I'm doing things for harmony, it's for, um, whenever I'm saying that I do things for harmony, it is more for the long term. So, anyway. Okay. I think that I am going to end this live stream. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you or anyone you know is interested in being typed by me, I have that as an option now. I do mentorship as well. I'm going to start streaming more regularly. Monday is a generally good day for me. And if anyone's interested, comment and let me know if you'd be interested in if I set this up as like an extra stream for Patreon, or like, I don't know. Patreon's weird to me. Like, everyone's telling me I should do it. Yeah, maybe I'll announce it. I don't know. I'm still thinking. Anyway, this was really fun. And generally what happens when I stream is I don't really feel like it. And then I'm like pleasantly surprised. But maybe I'll come up with a time that's like every Monday I will do a stream. But thank you for watching. I seriously, seriously appreciate it. And have a wonderful rest of your day.